Hello everyone, and if you clicked on this video, I assume you know a little bit or everything about the character William Afton. But to those in the audience who don't, please note that if you've never dabbled in FNAF, not even a little bit, all of this may seem really confusing for you. But to put all of that in a nutshell for today's video, you see in the 1980s, Afton and his good friend Henry Emily started Fazbear Entertainment. The two opened a first restaurant, Fredbear's Family Diner, with the first two animatronics, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. This is where the first major event took place in Afton's life, the bite of '83. I know there's a big meme surrounding this that I bet any of you could recognize, but this is that event that took place. His youngest child, Evan, was bitten by the Fredbear animatronic. In this situation, Afton blamed Henry for this cause. Naturally, William sought revenge as well. So in place of Evan's life, William committed his first murder, Charlie, or as you may know better, Charlotte Emily. After this, he goes on to kill the 5 original children, Gabriel, Jeremy, Fritz, Susie, and Cassidy, who go on to possess Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy. Afton then later down the road is confronted by these same spirits, and then proceeds to get inside the Spring Bonnie suit. This ends up killing him by the spring locks, and he is left to rot for about 30 years until he's moved into Fazbear's Fright. Now this is basically William Afton's origin, but it's time we dive into his rise and fall as a character. Now, William Afton, personally, I think he is a great antagonist to the series, as Purple Guy and Springtrap. But certain points in the games have him depicted in a way that makes his spark almost go out. Something else to understand is that I won't go in order by the correct timeline that is with the lore. It's much more difficult to explain, being that some of the games take place before other ones and some do after. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm gonna go in order of the games as they were released to the public, just so it's much more understandable. But like I said, if you do not know what I'm talking about, feel free to click off this video. But William Afton is basically the whole guy that has caused Five Nights at Freddy's, so to speak, in this story. When FNAF 1 and 2 first came out, there wasn't really any information about William Afton except for the mini-games in FNAF 2. This is when he makes his first official appearance. And when the second game came out, there really wasn't any information about Fredbear's Family Diner either. You see, these games, when they came out, they didn't have all these game theory videos and stuff explaining everything. So, what does that mean? Now, being that all this lore has been deciphered, we can tell that his upbringing as a character started here. When looking at this point in time with FNAF 1, we know that at that point, he had already murdered the original 5 kids. And when going into FNAF 2, we learn that he kills Charlie, or the puppet, in Fredbear's Family Diner. After this event, the next theme that takes place in the timeline is... I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the timeline, but bear with me on this. Keep what I say next in your mind because it makes sense for later, I promise. The next thing that happens in the timeline is the 5 original killings. You see, after Fredbear's Family Diner, the next opened location was Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And I don't mean the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza from the original first game. There was another location under the same name that just was no one knew about really, but that's what it was. This is where the 5 original kids were murdered. Directly after this is FNAF 2. That's what happened after that. And then FNAF 1 took place. So how exactly does William Afton rise here? Remember what I said, the games are out of order, when they were released and when they were played. Well, after regarding all of this information, William Afton gave fear and mystery to the whole audience of FNAF. We know that he murdered kids, but we didn't know why or why he's purple and wears a badge. All we knew about him is that he took place in the games. Again, there wasn't really any information about him. We didn't even know his name at this point. There was really nothing to know about him using the game's knowledge. Now, people may have revealed stuff slowly within this time, but there really wasn't anything to go off of. You see, back when it started, we didn't really have all the pieces of the puzzle. But now that we do, the story of FNAF reveals itself in a way that is keeping it a mystery at the same time. This personally, I think, makes William Afton's character much more vague, but to be honest with you, I think that his peak as a character was definitely in FNAF 3. You see, all of what made him rise from the previous games, like the mystery, the tension, not knowing anything about him, is also present in the third game, but it's amped up. You see, mystery is still there, but we know that he exists completely because he is the main character. Since William Afton got spring-locked in the spring bodysuit in the second game, in FNAF 3, William Afton is now part animatronic, which is already a morbid concept as it is, but he's human as well. You see, FNAF 3 is arguably the best game. Most people say it's because, well, it has really good mechanics, it's fun, it has a juggling act. Now personally I think FNAF 4 is the best and I have a video on it, but FNAF 3 has enough to make fear much more present. And Springtrap is that reason. Being that Springtrap is William Afton, the killer who started it all, it already gives you a whole unnerving presence as if what he was before wasn't enough. Being that William Afton is more threatening now, his presence is much more real. And to be honest with you, that's his peak as a character. I think FNAF 3 and Fazbear's Fright is when he peaks completely. But it doesn't exactly drop after that though. Please note that this next part is going to be a little confusing, but I'll be as clear as possible. So remember, since the fourth game takes place right after the third game, whenever they were released, his downfall doesn't start right after the third game. Remember what I said, I'm going in order of the games in which they were put out, like bot, or like Scott released them in the certain order he wanted them to. Not by the lore timeline and how everyone is piecing together the lore. And since we know FNAF 4 took place before the original games inside the timeline and the lore, all it tells us in that point is that the Bite of 83 took place. That's really all the lore-y stuff in FNAF 4 if you look at it from the timeline. But FNAF 4, when coming right after FNAF 3, just keeps William Afton's character more mysterious. We don't know anything about him much besides the fact that he was in FNAF 4, but he was at a steady level after his initial rise. But it was not for long. Okay, I don't know if you guys feel the same way I do, but I'm not a big fan of Sister Location. I don't know if it's because I watched Oh Yeah's video on it and I'm now converted, but I've always felt like FNAF 5 has just never had enough. I personally think Security Breach is what Sister Location wants it to be. You see, William Afton's downfall starts here and goes onward. In this game, William Afton's character takes anything that he had before and completely gets rid of it. He's changed into what seems like a mad scientist, making murder robots that not only takes his daughter, but also his son Michael. We know that he and Henry split apart, and that he plotted revenge because of animatronics. So the fact that he's making even more dangerous ones now is a massive oversight. But after that, this point, the stuff here completely dies. We, absolutely. And then we move into FNAF 6, a big transition. And his character is pretty much even more irrelevant. When it comes to fear, there's no looming presence over him. He's just another animatronic that can be stopped normally. Now, I would consider FNAF Help Wanted part of his initial rise, but being that we don't even know that Glitch Trap is William Afton's consciousness really at all until the end of the game, it doesn't give the same mystery of him like the previous games have. And to be honest, I feel like Security Breach did the same thing. After FNAF 3, William Afton felt like a prop in a memory. It's unfortunate, because I'd love to see what William Afton should have had a greater role in Security Breach than Vanny, in my personal opinion. I don't think that Vanny should have been the main antagonist, but I see why they did it. But you have to understand what I mean with his whole, initial rise and fall. See, in the first games, there was enough mystery and lore about him for him to start rising within the community of, fear and stuff like that. And then the fact that in FNAF 3 his whole character was revealed and he was the main threat just made him go up higher and higher to his peak. And then after that, he had a steady rate, FNAF 4, explaining more stuff in the past, and then he drops down completely in Sister Location, and it's just all down from there, with like Burn Trap and Security Breach, and it's not at all what I expected. But to conclude, I feel like William Afton will always have a potential to make a great comeback in another game, but I wish he would have had a more prominent role in certain games rather than being kind of forgotten about. William Afton, in my opinion, is kind of what the foundation of the lore was built on. But he will always remain as one of my favorite characters, and I think really anyone's favorite character in the whole FNAF game. But yeah, guys, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. Write a nice comment and drop a like. But yeah, guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay awesome, God bless, and peace.